Yo, what is up guys, redstagg here. In today's video I'm bringing you some of the top builds that you can play when starting your journey in Season 2 of Project Diablo 2, and additionally we'll provide a tier list so you can see where your favourite build ranks in comparison to its peers. Now, all of the testing I did myself in beta. I ensured that I was testing in area level 85 locations appropriate for the build, and with around +4 to all skills, which you can easily achieve through the likes of Spirit Sword, Spirit Shield, Lower Helmet, and +1 to all skills somewhere else. Now, I would like to point out that this tier list does change going into endgame, and this is purely so that you can get the best start you can get in Season 2 of Project Diablo 2. All gameplay and all testing you can find on my Twitch. I'll leave a link in my description if you want to check out the VODs, you can see the full gameplay. And otherwise, if you got some value from this, even if you just skip ahead to the tier list at the end, that's not a problem. Just remember to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It lets me know that you want to see more of this content. Now, without further need for an introduction, let's get into it. Your tier list for Season 2 of Project Diablo 2. See you after the intro. Starting with the D tier, which stands for don't play these if you can help it. I have the Fist of the Heavens Paladin and the Singer Barbarian. With Fist of the Heavens, I find I didn't have enough damage compared to the other Paladin builds. And with Singer Barbarian, I also find I didn't have that much damage to be able to deal with things very fast, but additionally was struggling with survivability when monsters are getting close to me. I must admit though, I'm not a Singer Barbarian expert, and maybe this could be bumped up another tier, but just in my experience I felt it was a little lackluster and remained in something that I certainly would not play. Now for the C tier, which stands for could play if you wanted, but I would advise against it. We have the Lightning, the Nova and the Frost Nova Sorceress, we have the Hammerdin, and we have the Fire Arrows on and the Lightning Strikes on. With the Sorceress, the Novas proved to be too difficult on a budget. You were very much lacking the survivability, and to get some more survivability you would reduce your damage even further and are definitely more tuned towards end game. Additionally, the Lightning Tree felt a little bit lackluster on a budget. However, I do see this scaling a bit better into late game once you have your Infinity, but not something I would recommend to begin with. The Hammerdin, although buffed slightly, still felt a little bit weak on a budget, especially when comparing to the Holy Bolt counterpart. And then the Fires On just didn't have any major damage that was too impressive. And with Lightning Strikes on, as is a recurring theme with the melee characters that we have in this budget test, is that you don't have the survivability to be able to clear things very effectively with such a budget, and therefore was very much struggling to clear area in hell. Next we have the B tier, which stands for better than C but not as good as A. And in this tier we have the likes of the Blizzard Sorceress, the Martial Arts Assassin, the Wind Druid and the Poison Necromancer, as well as the Multi-Shot Boson and the Fury Zone, as well as the Throwbarb. Now, without going into too much details on each individual build, these builds certainly felt like they were definitely getting stronger than, for example, C tier, and I could see certainly that with a few more upgrades these would certainly be viable builds. Although I felt with the state I was testing things, there was definitely other builds that were outperforming these. Now, it is worth noting here that the Throwbarb and the Multi-Shot Zone are here. In this case, I hadn't tried the new crafted items, and I do think that these two have potential to bump up a tier if you were to craft some nice items, but these aren't guaranteed, and you're not necessarily going to get this early ladder, and therefore I felt it was most suited to B tier. If you do want any explanation on individual characters and why I put them in that tier, feel free to leave a comment. I will get back to you as soon as possible. And this way we can have a bit of back and forth to help both of our understanding and why I've put a certain build into that tier. Next we have the A tier, let's say stands for almost S tier. We have quite a few here. We have the Ice Barrage Sorceress, we have the Hydra Sorceress. We have 3 Necromancer builds here. We've got the Fire Golem build, the Bone build, and interestingly the Curse build. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And then additionally we have the Mind Blast Assassin and the Cold Zone. Now, Barrage and Hydrasort were feeling like they were in a very good place right now. They were both able to pretty effectively clear area level 85s in Hell with this sort of budget gear, however are outclassed by some of the other builds, at least in my testing. The Bone Necromancer and the Fire Golem Necromancer are both also very viable. I really enjoyed playing the Bone Necromancer. I like the buffs it's had so far. It's definitely a viable starter if you want. And then a shout out to the Necromancer with the Curse. I could see the potential of it. There was a lot of damage coming out. I wasn't concerned about immunities. I was able to clear packs very well. I did keep this in A tier because I feel like the synergies when playing with other players become immense with your curses, and as well the ability for it to kill high density packs was crazy. When you stack 3 curses and hit Dark Pact where all of them are dealing area damage, you deal a lot of damage and can take down groups with no gear very easily, although the playstyle is a little bit clunky. So if there was another sort of point to the A tier, it would be maybe A-. Now onto the Cold Zone. The Cold Zone proved to be very effective in the area level 85, but also showed very promising results when doing cow runs. It was very easily able to stack cows together, freeze them all in place. However, I would mention you do want to be getting 100% Pierce if you can here to do this and get as much increased attack speed as possible. The rest of the all skills of course help your damage. Now finally we have the Mind Blast Assassin. The damage was quite good. It didn't have a care for immunities either. I did felt it was maybe a little bit lackluster compared to the others, and if I was to then also put this with the A-, I probably would. And finally we have the S tier. Now these are the super starting builds, the ones that in my testing definitely showed that they would be able to clear and farm with most ease compared to the other builds. So I'll talk a bit more about these. Perhaps not surprisingly, 3 of the builds belong to the Sorceress, and those are from the Fire Tree, Meteor and Combust, and then from the Cold Tree, Frozen Orb. Now I know Combust got nerfed, but it was still proving in tests with very little gear to be extremely strong. Now this is partially because Fireball is one of the prerequisites and the synergies, and therefore has really high damage in this build. That means in between the cooldown of Combust, which is still dealing a lot of damage, you can maintain your damage output very high and was still clearing really fast with this build. So definitely still recommendable. On the topic of the Fire Tree, Meteor, as we all know, has got a lot of love in Season 2. It was also proving to be very strong, and what I particularly liked about this build is with half of the damage being physical, if you came across unique packs that had fire immunities, you weren't having any problems with killing them either. What I would also recommend is maybe 1 point in Glacial Spike, so when you do have those fire immunes, you can keep them in the same location while you pound them with Meteor. But otherwise, a very strong and versatile build. Then the third of the Sorceress build is Frozen Orb. Now we all know Frozen Orb has got a little bit of love now, its cooldown has been removed, and it felt really strong and super safe. What I really liked about it is if you're correct with aiming your Frozen Orb, you could deal a lot of damage in a short space of time, and it felt super strong for clearing. So I can definitely recommend that if you're more inclined towards a cold Sorceress. Now going back to fire but with other characters, 2 builds that came out to me is definitely the Assassin with Wake of Fire, as well as the Fire Druid, which was quite surprising to me. Now there is a lot of hype about Assassins being a little bit overtuned with fire, and I can absolutely see why. It was so easy to safely and effectively farm the area level 85 in Hell with little to no gear with Wake of Fire. And as a bonus, you have, Death Sentry with the Corpse Explode to deal a little bit more physical damage as well. And overall, it felt really strong, where you can run through, place some traps, wait a second or so, and everything will be dead. And also, this build was actually able to do Hell Cows fairly easily as well, and so definitely earned its spot in the S tier. Moving on to the Fire Druid, and particularly with Molten Boulder and Volcano, I was totally caught off guard with how strong this build was. The knockback on the Molten Boulder was proving to be really strong in Hell, as well as the mixed damages between fire and physical. it was proving that even with fire immunes, you were having absolutely no problem taking them down. Another well-earned spot in the S tier. Now, probably unsurprisingly, we also have the two main summoning builds in the S tier. That is the Summoner Druid and the Summon Necromancer with skeletons, that is. Now, with the Summoner Druid, I personally didn't like the boring playstyle of sitting really back and, spawning ravens until things die. I would put that S- purely for playstyle, but I do recognize that this can farm maps, this can farm Chaos Sanctuary, this can do almost all of hell on a budget, so it does earn its spot in the S tier. Going on to the Necromancer, the same applies. It was very much able to farm almost everything in hell without any issue, and what I particularly liked about it is 1 point in Desecrate, 1 point in Corpse Explosion, and then applying your curses and making sure they're up all the time meant that you had a much more engaging summoning experience. You were summoning your skeletons and then you were assisting them with curses and Corpse Explosion, and again you were able to clear almost all of hell content with ease on a budget, also earning its spot in the S tier. Now our final part of the S tier goes to the Holy Bolt Paladin. Although being nerfed slightly as a support, the Holy Bolt Paladin is still extremely strong, and that is because Holy Bolt still shotguns, and I think rightfully so. Because of the damage type from Holy Bolt, and because of the ease of having a mercenary that you keep healing while you damage everything, you're also able to clear everything in hell with relative ease, and additionally you offer the best support for your team in the form of any aura that your team wants. So although this is more focused on solo play, I did want to keep Holy Bolt Paladin in S tier because it offers a lot of versatility for the team and is also able to clear everything in hell without major problems on a budget. So guys, that is the end of my tier list, and just for you, you'll now have the tier list in full screen so you can print screen it or screenshot it and share it with some friends and start a discussion. Now, I would be very curious to hear what you think about the tier list. Have I maybe misplaced some of them? I certainly know I've missed out some builds such as Whirlwind or the Werebear, etc. These are because I find them that you need 2 good weapons or 2 good armor to make it an early game viable build. However, I would be interested to hear where you think these would be placed on the tier list. So just get in touch in the comments. And as always, until next time, until season 2, redstagg out. GG.